If you've been following Peppa's show, you already know she's been on tons of adventures over the last 20 years, and there's still plenty more fun to come.
What do you mean?
But if you're truly a fan of this little piggy, are you sure you know every stage of her journey? One important thing about our favorite piggy's birth is making it clear that she didn't always live in the house we see in the show. In the episode Olden Days, Susie shows up at the pig's family house and says she has a photo to show Peppa. Peppa doesn't recognize the baby lamb in the picture, and that's when Susie explains that it's a photo of herself as a baby. Later, Peppa asks Mommy and Daddy if she was ever a baby, and they show her a photo and explain it was taken the day they moved into the house. So that means Peppa was born somewhere else. Maybe they used to live at Grandpa and Grandma's house before Daddy Pig, who's an architect, finished building the home we all know. That was over 20 years ago in real time, but in the show's timeline, it was only 6 years ago. And here's something cool. Daddy Pig said that Peppa and Susie's sheep have always been friends. So that means their families have known each other forever. Of course, their parents went to school together and were always best friends, just like you and our channel. That's why we're so happy to have you here with us. Grab your popcorn and let's explore every stage of Peppa Pig's life. It's time for another Cinewave. In that same episode called Olden Days, Mummy Pig said Peppa used to do just 3 things. All they were, cry, burp, and laugh a lot. All in that order. So yep, our favorite piggy really was quite a loud baby, but the funny thing is that we don't actually know what her very first word was. In the episode Baby Alexander, Peppa asks what her first word was. Mummy Pig says it was mummy, but Daddy Pig says it was daddy. And to this day, no one really knows which one is true. One thing we do know about the babies in the pig family is that they don't sleep very well. And everybody knows that thanks to Cousin Alexander, because in the episode Night Noises, Daddy and Uncle Pig talk about everything they have to do to get their babies to fall asleep. As for Peppa, we know that from a super young age, she and Susie loved playing in the backyard, and that totally explains why Peppa is so obsessed with jumping in muddy puddles. In one of Peppa's stories, there's a moment when she finds an old video of herself at 2 years old, and Mummy Pig was pregnant with George. At that time, Peppa was still super loud, but it looks like she loved falling asleep in Daddy Pig's arms. When George was born, Peppa was only 2 years old, and that opens up a really interesting theory. As we all know, George is 2 years old and already goes to the same class as Peppa with Madame Gazelle. But if that's the case, then it means Peppa was already in school when George was born, right? And if George, at just 2, is learning the same things Peppa was at 4, then what exactly was Madame Gazelle teaching back when Peppa was younger? It's a total mystery with no clear answer, but maybe we figured it out. There's a flashback from Mummy Pig in the Olden Days episode that shows Peppa and Susie when they were really little, and if you watch closely, you'll notice they were kind of goofy back then. Way more than George ever was. They even bumped heads and fell on the ground. That could be a clue that Peppa's generation wasn't quite ready for school yet, and it might have even been dangerous. But after some kind of experiment to boost intelligence, they started attending classes. Could that be true? If it is, we're betting it was one of Grandpa Rabbit's crazy inventions. And how about you? Would you want to go to school with Peppa and George? Drop a hashtag friends in the comments so we can meet up during snack time. In the very first episode of Peppa Pig, called Muddy Puddles, we meet the main character already at 4 years old, playing with her little brother George. It's raining heavily in the story, but eventually the sun comes out, and the yard is full of muddy puddles just waiting for the pig siblings to jump in. And something super interesting happens. When George finds a big muddy spot, the little pig tries to jump in, but his older sister stops him. She says she needs to check if the mud is safe for her baby brother first, and this is a really important moment because it shows that even at age 4, Peppa was already being super responsible with George, and you can bet she'll act the same way when her new little sister arrives. We all know that in Peppa Pig, time doesn't really pass, and that's why Peppa stays a little kid even after 20 years of the show airing on TV. And because of that, most of her adventures happen when she's 4 years old, like learning how to ride a bike with her friends and George, flying on a plane for the first time, and of course, one of the coolest things ever, getting a visit from the Tooth Fairy during the night. She lost her tooth while eating spaghetti, which is hilarious because spaghetti is not exactly the kind of food you'd expect to knock out a tooth. It was at the end of season 1 that Peppa celebrated her 5th birthday. On that day, the little piggy woke up early, right when the sun came up, and made a huge mess to get the whole family out of bed too. She was super excited for the magic tricks that Daddy Pig was going to perform, But before that, our piggy opened her first birthday present. She got a doll dress for her favorite teddy bear, Teddy. That day, Daddy Pig came up with a character called the Amazing Mr. Mystery, who would perform a few magic tricks for Peppa's 5 friends. And here's something interesting. If we think about the Bluey episode where Chloe only invited 7 friends to her birthday party, that was actually a reference to Peppa Pig. That day, Peppa invited 5 friends to her 5th birthday party, and they were Candy Cat, Susie Sheep, Danny Dog, Rebecca Rabbit, and Pedro Pony. With this list, we can tell who Peppa's best friends were at the time. Of course, friendships have changed a bit since then, especially now with the arrival of the new baby sister. Since Peppa turned 5 during the first season, we can confidently say that time doesn't really pass in our piggy's world. But that rule changed in 2025 with the announcement of the pig family's newest baby, which completely shocked the internet. The character we've been calling Peggy will be born at the end of this year, and that means Peppa's going to be an even bigger sister. In fact, Peppa mentioned this in the episode Peppa's Tales, when Mommy Pig announced at a big party that she was pregnant with her 3rd baby. In that episode, Peppa had to tell a different story to each character who showed up to the party because Mommy and Daddy Pig told her not to reveal what was really happening. And because of that, she ended up confusing the entire town. She told some of them that Mommy Pig was opening a bakery and told others it was a hat party. Everyone showed up to Peppa's house ready to celebrate something, but no one knew it was because a new baby was on the way. When Peppa's new sister is born, our main character will be 6 years old, and that means she'll have lots of things to teach her new little sister. How to get dressed, which toys she's allowed to use, and of course, what she needs to do to jump in muddy puddles the right way. Let's not forget that in the very first episode of the show, Peppa was doing the exact same thing with George, teaching her little brother all about puddle safety. Peggy is definitely going to have a great teacher, but this might be a bit tough for George, since it's now very likely he'll feel left out with 2 sisters getting so close. And you know who else could get even closer? Us! So make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell.
Thank you.
The future of the show is also going to show us Peppa as a teenager, and it all starts with the fact that it's time for our piggy to learn a little bit about the world of growing girls. That means makeup and new clothes. Every girl at some point starts to get interested in things beyond toys. Peppa will appear all grown up when her 14th birthday comes around, and Aunt Dottie sends her a new dress from the United States. On top of that, she'll also get some makeup, and Mummy Pig will teach her daughter how to feel beautiful. It's important to make it clear that Peppa Pig is a children's show, so the story behind these gifts will focus on sending a positive message about how nice it can feel to feel good about yourself. And that really matters, because the show has always shared great messages, like the importance of wearing a helmet when riding a bike, and even how people who use wheelchairs can live full, happy lives. And of course, with being a teenager comes first love, and we already have a pretty good idea how that long-awaited kiss between Peppa and her school crush Pedro Pony will go. It hasn't been officially confirmed yet whether we'll actually see romance in the next season, but it's almost certain that Peppa really is going to grow up and become more mature, and the reason for that is simple. The show needs to grow up alongside its fans. And of course, for all of that to happen, our main character will have to grow up and get married. We still don't know what Peppa's future job will be, but as she once said in the episode Future, she's going to work with computers. Peppa will get married and have a few piglets who are going to be absolutely adorable. It hasn't been confirmed yet exactly who Peppa's future husband will be, but it's pretty clear that once that moment comes, the show will change a lot. Peppa will stop being the main character because, as an adult, she'll have a lot more responsibilities, and that means her piglets will become the new stars of the show. When our little piggy show shifts to the future, it's very likely that time will stop moving forward. And you know why? Because if Peppa becomes an adult, then Daddy Pig and Mummy Pig will be elderly, and no one wants to say goodbye to those two. Luckily, in the world of cartoons, anything is possible. And you know what's even more likely? That you'll stick around with us here on the channel. That's why we picked out 2 more awesome videos for everyone to enjoy. We'll see you in the next one. Catch you later!